Professor Huggard, this is Kelly Bojorquez from Classical Academy Online, and this is my digital presentation. My first part would be to introduce the ISTE-S standards, and of course I would follow this link to show the standards. And some of my colleagues are familiar with them and some of them are not, so this would be a great time to talk about them. And then there's a great video that I've embedded here for students to kind of introduce them to what digital citizenship is. So I'd show the video and then visit the standards and give grade level teams 5 minutes to develop a list of 3 ways that they are already meeting or exceeding standards, and then 3 ways in which they'd like to set improvement goals for the year. And then we'd move into understanding the ISTE-S standards and why ISTE developed them. Flanagan et al. Gives some good background on why this, what the process and thought process was behind that. And of course, I'd love to relate these to the common themes of the Common Core standards and to see the overlap that they have, and of course ask volunteers to share out how they can relate the ISTE-S standards to the Common Core standards and see what habits of mind and skills they overlap with. Next, I would talk about the best practices for implementing ISTE standards, the ISTE-S standards specifically. Muir, in his 2007 research summary, actually talks about the best practices in technology integration, and the ISTE standards line up pretty neatly with those, so it would be good to see the research basis and the pedagogy behind the ISTE-S standards. At this point, I would lead my fellow teachers into a breakout session and give grade level cross-curricular teams 5 minutes to brainstorm and ask a speaker from each group to share out 3 ways that they could integrate and implement the standards in new and creative ways. And then there were some ideas that I had regarding just examples to spur on creative thought. We could use projects from Summit Learning Platform to leverage technology to move students toward authentic assessment of critical thinking rather than assessment of rote facts, which is what Edgenuity does. And just a few ideas of how specific ideas of the current and emerging technologies that are in use at our school and that will be in use in the future. And next, I would want to introduce the ISTE standards, especially for those teachers who are unfamiliar. We would visit these standards at this link and then, of course, view the poster, which is really cool. And I would give teacher teams 7 minutes to look those over. And, of course, if they wanted to become members of ISTE, they could get that awesome poster at that link. And then we have 2 professional development journals, and this would give them an opportunity to do some reflection and write down 2 ways that they are learners, leaders, citizens, collaborators, designers, facilitators, and analysts. Then next we would want to understand the ISTE standards, and this gives the research basis for the pedagogy behind the development of the ISTE standards. And great educational leaders are learners, leaders, good digital citizens, all of these things, and of course these are research supported, and I would love to go through the elements of the new teacher according to Kalantzis and Cope in their 2010 study. It's a fantastic list of 21st century teacher qualities. Really neat. And then another breakout session here. I would want to say, I would want teachers to examine how they would implement the ISTE standards and give them 3 minutes to reflect in their professional growth journals about how they plan to implement the ISTE standards, and of course ask for volunteers to share out. Some ideas that would spur creative thinking are here, and I would want to share those as well. I apologize for time constraints. I can't read through everything here. Best practices for implementing the ISTE standards, I would want to talk about the essential conditions and follow this link through and talk about how this research definitely Ertmer, Gopalakrishnan, and Ras in 2000 talked about all of the constructivist aspects of learning that make technology most effective in learning. So giving them that theoretical basis. And then talking about some exciting current and emerging technologies that are happening. Roland's wonderful article gives us some background on some things that are recently happening that are changing the landscape of technology and education. And we could definitely relate to those. And then I wanted to give my fellow teachers an opportunity to talk about technology across the curriculum and collaborate on ideas that are project-based, cross-curricular, student-directed, connected and empowered by technology with multimedia deliverables. And one case in point is a student-run magazine blog in which journalism, photography, art, video, programming students would all work together to maintain an online blog where they reported on all kinds of things that are going on in our school, and it would give an awesome opportunity for community collaboration, but also so many cross-curricular opportunities to bring in technology and to maximize learning. Some safety considerations we always have to be considerate of. Of course, we would follow the link to briefly go over the requirements of SIPA and talk about, of course, what we're responsible to address and consider regarding student safety and privacy. Legal considerations as well, excuse me. We'd be able to go through, there's actually a really great lesson here Heartland Area Education Agency put together about the legal aspects of digital citizenship. And here are just some topics covered in that. Ethical considerations, of course, these are hot topics in our school as they are in many others. But I thought that I would introduce Harvard's Making Caring Common project, which is a proliferation of all kinds of fantastic resources, and that would be a great springboard for ethical chats, but also ethical resources that we could teach, that would teach and also reinforce those ethics, digital ethics. And then a breakout session here. We have whiteboard tables in our cyber cafe, so I would write safe on one, ethical on the other, and legal on a third table, and distribute whiteboard pens, and then invite teachers to circulate and collaborate with their table teams on specific issues that they've seen or they anticipate seeing in regards to safety, legality, and ethics, and then have them circulate and in a different color write at least one suggestion on how to creatively address that issue, and that would kind of give them some constructivist professional development. Here are some best practices for modeling safe, legal, and ethical use of technology. Of course, knowing our schools, the ECC, the Escondido Cyber Cafe, acceptable use policy and its ethical and legal bases. Communicating those, modeling them, encouraging students to discuss them, and of course, as Rader in her 2002 study said, keeping students accountable by monitoring, reinforcing the great stuff, and of course, enforcing the rules when someone breaks them is always a good way to help out with that. The role of a technology leader. We have wonderful technology leaders on campus, and of course I would want to bring them forward, introduce them, but also remind all of my staff that we're all technology leaders. And these are some great ways that they are not only expected but encouraged to support digital citizenship. And of course, we've got techsperts, and I would want to bring those people forward and introduce them. And then finally, I would give them opportunities to grow and see how they could take this as a springboard and take a few easy opportunities to just take that next step into furthering their professional development. We have a job shadow program in which we could have a day off. We have floating substitutes who can come through and support us in that, and we could job shadow a techspert. Maybe we want to become really good at assessment, we would job shadow David Morningstar. If we wanted to learn more about school pathways, we would job shadow Kathy Coleman. We could spend some time with Hilda Gerhardt to understand more about Schoology, etc. We could also join the technology expert team, and I could bring those people forward and talk about the places that are available there. And then there's a wonderful community on ISTE that is just chock-a-block full of different professional learning networks that people can join. And then we would talk about what a PLN is, and of course how they can form one of their own if they'd like. So here are my resources. I'm going to upload this video to YouTube, and then also try to put it on Edmodo, and hopefully you'll be able to access one or both of those. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.